Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. I hope you're all doing so well. Welcome back to another true crime and makeup video. Today we are covering the case of the DeFeo murders. Now most of you might know this as the Amityville murders or the Amityville horror house. These murders and how this case goes was so insane that there's been books written, there's been movies made, so many movies by the way. My favourite's the one with Ryan Reynolds and Melissa George, very good watch, but so many movies have come from this case. The reason that this murder case is so infamous is because Ronnie DeFeo murdered 6 members of his family in cold blood on November the 13th, 1974. Now, the reason that he would commit these murders of his family was because apparently there was demonic voices telling him to do it. He said he was demonically possessed when he killed his family. Now before we get into the case, make sure you are subscribed to my channel, get the notification bell on so you don't miss when I upload, which is every Wednesday and Sunday, 7:30 British Standard Time. Please ensure that you engage with the video in some way, a like, a comment, a share. Anything that you can do to help the channel out would be greatly appreciated. Now if you've stumbled across my channel purely for the true crime aspect, first of all, love that for you. Please stick around. Although I am doing my makeup, the video is not about makeup. It is purely about the crime that takes place. I'm not going to sit and talk about my makeup. It's just something that I do to keep myself busy, keep myself occupied. Like, doing makeup for me is like someone else using a fidget spinner. You know? Makeup is my fidget spinner. That's why we do it. Also, let me know your thoughts, feelings, opinions down below because this is a crazy case. But without any further rambling and any further ado, let's get into the case of Ronnie DeFeo. So, Ronnie DeFeo, who was born Ronald Joseph DeFeo Jr., he was born on the 26th of September 1951. Just to make things easier as I get into the case, I will be calling Ronnie DeFeo Jr. Butch because that was the nickname that he was better known as. And then his dad was also Ronald DeFeo, so I'm going to refer to him as Big Ronnie, which was his nickname throughout the community. Now, he was born in Brooklyn, New York, and the family would later move to a more affluent area within Long Island, but that's all part of the case, so like, we'll get there when we get there. So Butch, he was one of 5 children to Ronnie DeFeo Sr., so Big Ronnie, as we will be calling him, and also Louise DeFeo. He had 2 sisters, Alison and Dawn. Then he had 2 brothers by the names of Mark and John Matthew. So the DeFeos, right, they are like that kind of family that just has everything. Everything that you could wish for on God's green earth, they had, right? They had this big, beautiful house. They lived in this very affluent area. They were well respected in the community. They were well liked. Neighbours said that they just looked like this really normal, happy family. So the DeFeos, they reside in this beautiful, big Dutch colonial house. Like, it is stunning. And the house was 112 Ocean Avenue. Out the front of the house, they had like this sign that said High Hopes, which kind of eerie now when, you know, we learn what happens in this house. But they also had a swimming pool. They had a boat dock like nearby, like on their land they had a boat dock, which is like insane. And as beautiful as this house is, it is also known to look quite creepy. On the side of the house there's these windows, and these windows kind of look like eyes because of where they're positioned, and like people in the neighbourhood would say like when they walk by that house they felt like the eyes of the house was like following them down the street. They felt like someone was looking at them, right? Creepy stuff. But I mean, besides the, you know, the freaky eyes on the house, people did admire the structure. They thought it was a really beautiful home, and it was. Now, I do have to admit, right, something that kind of like gives me the ick about the DeFeo family was the fact that inside this big lavish house, they all had self-portraits that had been painted of them. Yeah, like full-sized, real-life portraits of themselves, individually lined up. Like, it's given like I love myself kind of vibes, but not in the healthy like I love myself. It's kind of given like I love myself, you know? And apparently it was Big Ronnie who really wanted these portraits. This is a man that thinks he is a lot bigger, richer and more important than he actually is, and we will get into that. But he was very, very arrogant, narcissistic, and he really pushed to have these portraits done. And like, I do have to say, the locals of the area, they had such high opinions of Butch, Ron DeFeo Jr., but also the entire family. Like, a girl who was local to the area said that Butch would always give her a ride to her family's restaurant in Brooklyn. He was always really calm, really kind and caring. He just seemed like a really upstanding guy. Now, another neighbour by the name of Catherine O'Reilly, she had said that she became particularly close with the DeFeo family after her husband had passed away. They welcomed her with open arms, they showed her love, kindness, care, and she could not believe what happened within this family. And she just thought they were these really loving people who helped. There's my delivery. As I was saying, right, so this Catherine O'Reilly, she said that the DeFeos just seemed like these really loving, kind people who helped her through the most horrific time in her life. However, as we know, in these cases, things are not always as they seem. Actually, they're rarely as they seem, and that was certainly the case here. It would appear that this happy family facade that they had was just that, a facade, because inside those four walls there was a hell of a lot more going on. So let's get back to Big Ronnie, right? Because remember, there's a little bit of goss about Big Ronnie. So he owned an auto dealership, right? And whilst he had his own business, this would not fund the luxurious lifestyle that the DeFeos were living and what they were portraying to society. Now, you're wondering, well, Anna, if Ronnie DeFeo, Big Ronnie, if he's not bringing in the bread, who is? Well, Louise DeFeo. Her dad was very, very wealthy. He was so wealthy that he actually bought them 112 Ocean Avenue. Before this, they had been living in a really small apartment in Brooklyn, but he came to them with thousands and thousands, bought them the house, and because Big Ronnie wanted all the family portraits on the walls, Michael Briganti, Louise's father, he gave them 50 grand. 50 grand to have their portraits painted professionally. Are you joking me? Like, if I went to my dad and I was like, listen, I want money to paint my portrait, he would probably paint my portrait for me instead, and with my dad's drawings, it's going to be a wee stick man with hair. And I'm sorry, but you know you have far too much money that you don't even know what to spend it on. More money than sense if you're willing to fork out 50 grand for some portraits. Honestly though, I cannot even begin to tell you enough how much Big Ronnie loved to show off his wealth. It ain't his wealth, right? But he's not going to tell anyone that because he wants to look like Charlie Big Balls in the street. Another thing that a lot of people did not know about Big Ronnie was that he was a very, very abusive man. Tale as old as time, right? Tale as old as time. But he was an abusive man. And unfortunately, most, if not all, of his anger and abuse would be directed at his oldest child, Ronnie DeFeo Jr. Now, growing up, Butch, he really struggled to make a connection with his father, and honestly, Big Ronnie just didn't really try. It's like he had no real desire to actually connect with his son. Like, there wasn't really any common ground between them. They didn't try and find common ground, and of course that's going to put a strain on any relationship. And you know what really just breaks my heart is Butch did say that growing up he felt like his father didn't actually like him at all, and he believed that that is why he was the almost sole victim of his abuse. Like, can you imagine, or do you know what, maybe some of you can imagine what it is like to grow up with a parent who you think hates you because they don't try and connect with you, or you are the victim of their abuse. Like, don't have children if you're going to act like a monster to them. Simple as that. Now, horrifically for Butch, not only was his home life just dreadful, when he would go to school, he was severely bullied regarding his looks, particularly his weight. He was quite overweight as a child, and the school bullies would call him pork chop and blob. It's so hard when you're younger, and then obviously when you're growing up being a teenager, going through puberty, etc., your weight being spoke about and being a common factor of conversation or comedy for some people, it's horrific, and that kind of thing really stays with you. Now, with the bullying that he was facing at school, it did motivate him to lose a lot of weight, and when he got to high school, he had actually lost almost all of that weight. Like, he just looked like an average boy now. Now, whilst it might sound great that he, is losing the weight and getting himself healthy more than anything, he actually did this in the most unhealthy way. He had become addicted to amphetamines, and he was also using alcohol and drugs as a coping mechanism for the abuse, for the bullying, for his mental health that had suffered all those years. Now, Butch and Big Ronnie, as you can imagine, they fought constantly. Like, there was barely a day that went by where Butch and Big Ronnie wouldn't be in a fight at some point. And in one time in particular, it got so bad that Butch did pull a gun on Big Ronnie. He threatened to shoot him in the midst of one of their fights. Now, for a time, Butch was employed at his father's dealership, although I will say, he never really attended, and if he did attend, he would leave as soon as he arrived. Like, he was in the door 5 minutes and he's like, right, shift over, to the pub I go. Now, most of Butch's time would be spent drinking alcohol and taking plenty of drugs. He would also get in fights with locals at the pub. He was constantly getting in fights with his parents, especially Big Ronnie. Now, although Butch had his demons, no one would ever have thought that he could have committed the heinous crimes that he did on November the 13th, 1974. So it's around 6:30 p.m. on November the 13th of 1974 when Butch runs into Henry's bar in Amityville, which is not so far away from his house, and he begins to scream for help. So he barges through the doors. He's completely out of breath, right? Because he's sprinted to Henry's bar, and he's like,
"You gotta help me. I think my mom and dad are shot."
Butch, you know they're shot because you did it. Now, obviously, this family is well known and well liked, as is Butch, and they rally around him to try and help. They head to 112 Ocean Avenue. Now, once the group arrived at the DeFeo residence, they quickly realised that Butch DeFeo's parents were killed. Now, a friend of Butch's, Joey Eswit, he would call the Amityville Police Department and explain what they found. They would wait on the police coming, and then once the police arrive, they conduct a full and thorough search of the DeFeo residence. Now, once they conduct this full search, they very quickly find 6 members of the DeFeo family lying shot dead in their beds. Now, it had been concluded by the police that the family had been shot dead with a .35 caliber lever action Marlin 336C rifle, and they reckoned that they had been shot somewhere just after 3 a.m. that very morning. Now, the victims of this mass murder was, of course, Louise DeFeo, Ronnie DeFeo Sr., Alison, Dawn, Mark, and John Matthew. So Butch, he was the lone survivor. He was the only one who survived this horrific attack. Now, when the police show up, they said that Ronnie DeFeo was in absolute shock. He was devastated. He could not quite believe what had happened to his family, but he also made the police aware that he was in fear of his own life now. And the police also admitted that they actually felt quite worried for Butch's safety as well, because Ronnie DeFeo Jr. had actually said that he believes that the killing of his family was the work of a mob hitman by the name of Louis Fellini, and he believed that now the mob hitman, Louis Fellini, would be after him. Butch is taken to the police station, obviously for his own safety, because Louis Fellini might be after him. He's not, but he might be. And when the police are interviewing him, the more intense that the interview gets, they realise that there is a lot of inconsistencies in Butch's retelling of the events. So the first thing that the police are like, that's a bit suspicious, Butch, is Ronnie DeFeo. He tells the police that he was working all day and then he was with his friends in the afternoon, so there is absolutely no way he could have killed his family because he's got 2 alibis. Oh, that's 4. He's got 2 alibis. But what the police obviously discovered a lot earlier was the fact that these killings had taken place somewhere after 3 a.m. in the early hours of the morning. Now, this would have been before Butch had even headed to work for the day. So unless he has, spent the night with someone after a couple of drinks, or he works night shift and day shift, then he's a liar. And then if we go back to DeFeo's statement regarding Louis Fellini, he said that he believed his family might have been murdered by him and potentially Louis Fellini would now be after him. Well, the police looked into this and it turns out that Louis Fellini, he was out of the state when these murders occurred. Like, come on, Butch, fact check. Now, the interrogation only seemed to intensify and the very next day, Ronnie DeFeo, Butch, he confessed. He just let it rip. He even said, once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast. Now, I think what makes the murders of his family even more heinous than it already is the fact that once he had murdered his family, he then went, took a bath, had a thorough wash. If there was any blood on him, he got it off. Any gunshot residue, he was trying to get that off. He even changed his clothes, redressed. He was hiding the clothes that he wore for the shooting. And not only did he get rid of the blood-stained clothing, he also got rid of the Marlin rifle and also the cartridges. And then he went about his day. He went off to work. And when he got to work, he pretended like he was completely ignorant to the fact that his dad hadn't turned up to work. Remember, they work in the same place, it's his dad's company. And he's like, I don't know why dad didn't turn up today, actually, that's weird. And then he even phones him to pretend like he doesn't know what's going on. And then he leaves work early, right? And when he leaves work early, he goes to meet up with his friends in the afternoon. Now, when he meets up with his friends, he makes a big song and dance about the fact that I can't reach my dad or any of my other family members. And he pretends that he's a bit concerned because he's like, I don't know what that reason would be. I know what the reason is. You've killed them. So Ronnie DeFeo's trial would begin on October the 14th of 1975. And this trial would conjure up a lot of attention. And I mean a lot of attention. Now, there was two reasons for this. The first one being very obvious. The heinousness of his crimes. He murdered his own family. He shot his family dead whilst they slept. And the second was the fact that Ronnie DeFeo had claimed when he had killed his family, he was under demonic possession. Yeah. He's laying it on the devil. So Butchie's lawyer was William Webber, and William Webber's sort of route of defence was insanity. Now, he said that Ronnie DeFeo had been hearing these demonic voices for a very, very long time, and he was trying to resist their urges. But ultimately, these voices were telling him to murder his family. They were saying that his family was evil, that they were planning on killing him, that they all hated him, they were coming for him, they were conspiring against him. And apparently this was going on a very long time, and he got to a point where he couldn't handle the voices anymore. Now, he also said that Ronnie DeFeo couldn't even remember killing his family. So it's almost like that, when people talk about possession, they talk about a loss of time, where obviously the demon has taken over the vessel and then you don't remember anything happening because ultimately you weren't in your body. The demon was. Now, if you know me, you will know how big this statement is, okay? Because if you know me, you know that I eat, sleep, breathe horror films. Paranormal horror films, love them. The Conjuring, James Wan, chef's kiss, right? Love them. And I would love to say nothing more than this is a case of demonic possession. But where I cannot is if you were demonically possessed, right? Would you go to such lengths to conceal your crimes? I mean, he showered, he redressed, he got rid of the evidence, and surely, as a demon, you're not going to bother about that. Or would you? I don't know. But for some reason, I'm just not buying it. It's like, for me, he's, tried to provide himself with an alibi and getting rid and discarding the evidence, hoping not to be caught. It's giving very much, I'm in my own mind, I know what I've done, I know it's wrong, and I don't want to be caught. So, fully culpable, in my opinion. However, I will say the authorities, They even had some concerns of their own. They thought it was really strange and really eerie that all 6 of the victims had been shot in their sleep with absolutely no sign of struggle. And the second thing that just really baffled them was the fact that none of the neighbours heard any of the gunshots go off, which is really strange because Ronnie DeFeo, Butch, he never used a silencer. So that would have been so loud, and at that time in the morning, somebody, should have heard something. And there was some neighbours who had actually been awake around the time that these shootings would have took place, so how come no one heard them? Now, Ronnie DeFeo, he did say that he had actually drugged his family at dinner time. However, dinner time and then the time that they were shot was 10 hours. 10 hours gone by, maybe even more, I don't know, I'm not doing the math. So he was trying to say that this would maybe be the reason that there was no struggle, but the police thought, that big time gap, everything would have wore off by then, surely. And also, that does not explain why no neighbours heard any gunshots. So on November the 21st, 1975, over a year after the murders of his family, Ronnie DeFeo Jr. was found guilty on all 6 counts of second-degree murder. On December the 4th of 1975, Judge Stark had sentenced Butch to 6 sentences of 25 to life. Now, Butch would remain incarcerated in prison right up until his death when he was the age of 69 on March 12th of 2021. Now, his official cause of death hasn't actually been released to the public, so I'm not sure what happened to him. Maybe the demons got him in the end. Now listen, I know this story should probably end now, but it's no gonna. I've still got a wee bit of information for you. So now, I am going to briefly speak about the haunting that took place in 112 Ocean Avenue after the DeFeo murders. Now, this was the Lutz family who had moved in, and they just made some outrageous claims, right? And these claims were believed by a lot of people, and a lot of the locals and people all over the world believed that maybe, just maybe, Ronnie DeFeo had in fact been possessed. So let me talk about the Lutz family. So in December of 1975, a new family would move into 112 Ocean Avenue, and this would be the Lutz family. Now, the Lutz family was made up of George Lutz, his wife Kathy, and their 3 children. Now, the family would only be in the DeFeo home for 28 days before they then all had to flee in absolute terror from this house, leaving behind all their belongings, all their property, clothes, jewellery, everything that you could imagine. They left it all behind. Now, this house was sold to them at an absolute steal of a price. So in the beginning, they were a bit what's wrong with this place? What's going on? What's the catch here? There must be something wrong if we're getting it at such a good price. And time would tell. Once the Lutz family had left this house, they said that they were living in absolute terror, and they believed that the house was haunted by the tormented and tortured spirits of the DeFeo family. Now listen, the claims that they make's pretty you've been watching too much horror films, right? But they said that greenish slime, dark green slime, would ooze down the walls of the house. They also said that windows in the house would randomly break and shatter with no apparent sign of why this would happen. And Kathy Lutz, she said she had levitated at her bed. Yeah. Baby gal be flying. She levitated at her bed apparently. Now, the family claimed that there was foul odours throughout the house, almost like rotten meat, which if you watch enough films or if you read up on possession, then you know that the smell of rotten meat is also a sign of evil, demons, demonic presence. These foul odours could not be tracked back to anything, it wasn't George with a dodgy stomach, it wasn't the bin needing emptied, it was rotten meat odours for nowhere. Now, George Lutz, he claimed that every single night he would be awoken at 3:15 a.m, which had later been deemed the exact time the DeFeo murders would have taken place. Creepy stuff. After the Lutz family left, other families have come and gone through that house, and not a single other family has made the claims that the Lutz family did. And it is thought that because the Lutz family had actually been in a great amount of debt, like George specifically had a lot of debt, they thought he was just seeing dollar signs. He knew that people were kind of obsessed with the paranormal, satanic stuff, and he thought it would be a great moneymaker. And it was, because they wrote a bloody book on it. Now, I will say one of my favourite films to watch is the Amityville horror. So you have the ones from like the late 70s, but my favourite was the one in the early thousands. It was Melissa George, Ryan Reynolds. They were so good in it. And can I just tell you, if you only know Ryan Reynolds from like Deadpool or like comedy that he does, and he does it well, but my God, he plays a psychopath. Next level. Like, the man is so talented, and it's like you forget it's Ryan Reynolds that you're watching because it's incredible. Just watch it. Now, of course, because the case was like such a spectacle, the family that own the house now, they had to change the address from 112 Ocean Avenue to 108 to kind of get rid of, you know, the stalkers, the paranormal enthusiasts, the weird true crime people like myself who just wanted to have a look at the house and see, you know, where the horrors happened. But to this very day, that house remains known as the Amityville Horror House. So like, let me know, what do you think? Did you think Ronnie DeFeo was actually possessed, or do you think he was just a man who had suffered great trauma in his life and one day snapped? But I mean, why would he kill his siblings? Like, I know his dad abused him, which was absolutely horrific, and I'm not condoning him murdering his dad by any means. But I'm just wondering why he would target his siblings as well. Maybe even, you know, his mum. Like, why would you do that? But that is the end of another true crime and makeup episode, and also a haunting or homicide episode, because it was paranormal as well. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, put the notification bell on so you don't miss when I upload, which is every Wednesday and Sunday at 7:30 British Standard Time. I'm here every single week. You don't want to miss it. We have a good time over here. Please don't forget to engage with this video in some way by leaving a like, a comment, you know, share the video, do all three if you can, would be amazing, just so I can get my videos pushed out into the algorithm. Down below I will leave my social media handles, so my Instagram and my TikTok. My email address will also be down below if you want to send your case suggestions over, or you can just leave them in the comments if that's easier. I have a big list that I'm compiling, so anything that you send over or comment will be added straight to that list. If you're interested in any products use my face today, they'll also be listed down below with the links in the description if there's anything that you would like to pick up. I really hope you enjoyed this one. Be a good person, don't be a bad person, stay safe, look after each other, and until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye!